I hear dogs.
Hi, this is Marlene, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Whether you're watching a video or listening to a podcast, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. Links to videos or MP3 files can be found on miamighostchronicles.com. Go to marlenepardo.com for information on new book releases. I narrate several podcast series that can be found on major podcast platforms and can also be listened to via Alexa, Sonos, and other home systems. Look for Supernatural Storytime for scary storytelling, Nightshade Diary for classic horror and adventure stories, Stories of the Supernatural for interviews with different guests on the show. If you want to get noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit Strange Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com or find us on Blogspot. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. I'm doing well. It's been, everything is good here. You know, we've been having cold temperatures. It's been getting colder. Yeah, I do the typical, I'm from South Florida, from Miami, which is, oh my God, the sun is setting. It's going to go below 50 degrees. I better run inside and stay in there forever. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing that kind of thing. But besides that, everything has been really good. Hopefully I've got some chicks hatching. From my previous show, I told everybody that I let one of my chickens, she's a little girl, one of my smaller hens, she went broody, and I just gave her 7 eggs. And she had made a nest under one of my steps into one of the sheds. And on that 21-day base for hatching, she should be hatching them today, tomorrow. It's kind of weird sometimes with the eggs. So I already got her successfully at night. I had made a cage in the shed, and I put her in there, and she stayed on top of her eggs, but sometimes they get kind of weird. So I did it at night. She's there. So hopefully I'll be able to get some pics, I promise, cross my heart, of the chicks. So I'll show them to you guys. And I'm hoping out of the 7 eggs, I'm sure there's got to have been some fertile ones there. Anyway, guys, I want to remind you also that I want you to sign up for the newsletter. I've got the newsletter, comes out once a week, maybe twice, because what I do is I do include links to some of the podcasts, the older podcasts. This is, a lot of people sometimes ask me, sometimes I want to look for the older interviews or other things that you do. So I put links to that as well. Again, if you know any of the book projects that I've got going on, I announce it on the newsletter. As a matter of fact, pretty soon I'm going to be looking for a title for the book right now that I'm working on, which is part of the Civil Chronicles universe. I'm still just thinking of beta readers for the manuscript. Again, and like I tell everybody, the last time I released the last book back in September, I did 100 book giveaway through Goodreads, and I announced it on the newsletter, Goodreads, which is of course affiliated with Amazon, and you could have gotten one of the 100 free copies. But anyway, guys, and of course, don't forget, you can go to miamighostchronicles.com or marlenepardo.com, and you have links to all the shows, any of the video or podcast series that I do, not only Stories of the Supernatural, but the other 2. And then, of course, just to anything you want to look up, podcast platforms, etc., etc. And let's get on to the good part. And, a lot of you have said, oh, Marlene, we want to talk to, you bring a lot of the authors and things like that, but we also like to, talk or hear you talk to the ghost hunters, people that are still out there that do it, what I say, the real work, the field work. And so that's what we did. I've got a group of investigators. I'm going to bring them on. They are the Southern Ghost Girls Tour and Paranormal Investigations. And they are a team led by the founder and investigator, Leslie Ann. They investigate homes, historical landmarks, museums, and other places in the southern United States that are known to have or had a history of unexplained happenings and paranormal phenomena. They use a scientific approach in the tours and investigations to recording findings using specialized equipment. After years of doing tours and investigations with other groups, Leslie Ann decided it was time that she started up a group of her own to lead her own investigations. And she's always enjoyed history tours. I know what that's like. Fascinating places. So she decided to merge her paranormal investigations so others could be a part of it. Ever since she was a child, she happened to have what people call experiences. We're going to ask her about that, of the unknown. She has always had the gift of having a very good intuition about things and has used this gift to her advantage to help others. The team does not delve into participating into any dark or evil phenomenon. It strictly uses a scientific approach when doing investigations and research. The team participants are all women of faith and of good moral character. They're just curious to see if they can record metaphysical phenomena or unexplained happenings. And we'll go ahead later on in the show. We're going to give you information about their tours, investigations, etc. Help me to welcome them. How are you doing today, guys?
Hey, thank you for having us, Marlene.
On the contrary, it's my pleasure. Yeah.
It's cold here though.
Yes.
No, I know. I tell her, I was born and raised in Miami, and I moved up to North Florida like a year ago. And in Miami, when it gets into the 50s, everybody's like, oh, it's so cold. But over here lately at night, it's been dropping like into, last night with 32, it was almost freezing. And for me, that's like, oh, okay. Because you can feel it. As soon as the sun starts to dip, the temperature starts going down. And I'm like, I'm get whatever I need to do outside, I'm doing it, because otherwise I'm going inside.
Well,
Like, don't ask me for an errand. I'm not going anywhere. And I moved to a little town with only 5,000 people in it.
well,
So, and around here, like when you go outside, it's dark. It is dark. There's no city lighting, nothing. I live on 4 acres and everybody around here is on acreage. And so when you go out there, it's like there's nothing out there. So, I mean, I love it. I personally love it, but still it's it's like, man, it's really cold out here.
well,
And I've got like about 400-year-old live oaks in my yard and part of the property. And with that Spanish moss, I'm telling you, man, it's the perfect setting for like a good mystery or something like that. It's like, man, I should charge somebody to come and film a movie here. But anyway, guys, let's start with you, Leslie. You said, what, as a kid, you had weird experiences. What happened? And we're like, so what happened? What happened with you, Leslie?
okay. So, basically, around the age of 6 years old, I started having these experiences. Now, everybody would probably think I was crazy, so I didn't tell anybody, right? But I could hear voices giving me warnings about things that were going to happen. And it was mostly like a woman's voice. And I would hear these, I would see images come into my mind. But of course, back then, you didn't
No.
people. But I continue to have these experiences. I've had just, you name it, happen. But it just, I've been able to see things that are going to happen. That's
Okay.
the first thing. The curiosity really, my curiosity got the best of me. So I just started doing like different investigations and stuff. But these were with other groups, other tours. And then I've been doing this for 20 something years, doing that. So that's how my experiences started. I'm not sure. Plus I've seen a lot of things happen.
Yes.
A lot of unexplainable things, like fireballs hitting our car once.
Wow. Okay. No, that's just like, that happens all the time. But was this during an investigation, or when you were going or leaving an investigation, or what happened?
Growing up, you'd ask me, how I got started, and this was stuff that happened as a child. I mean, things just always seemed to happen around me that were
Okay.
it was just very strange. And my mother too. I kind of think it's in the bloodline.
Right. Okay. Okay.
That's how I got into it. So, Debbie, how did you?
Well, I just had things happen that just weren't normal around me as growing up. Everything was like deja vu to me.
Yeah.
And I always, it was weird. I always felt like I didn't belong here for some reason. I know that's crazy.
Okay.
That makes us
Right.
a star seed or something like that. But I just had a lot of things happen to me that just didn't add up. And then the biggest thing that happened was I built a house on the Carton Mansion's grounds. And when I did that, I started really seeing, I saw an apparition of a soldier in my bedroom. And
Wow.
things started really happening to me. My niece was in the bathroom one day. She was little. And I walked in there and I said, "Who are you talking to?" And she said, she was talking to the soldier that was standing behind her. So she has it too. So I started seeing things. That's when it really kicked off. And I was probably in my 20s when that happened. So that's been like 30.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, and then that's pretty much
I mean, once you see
that'll do it. Believe it or not, a lot of people, even though they have weird experiences, not everybody, I don't want to say lucky because is to actually see an apparition, to actually see it. Most people, sometimes people will smell things, hear things, experience things, but as far as actually seeing something, not everybody gets to do that. How about you, Kemi?
So I had some experiences as a small child. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I had seen an apparition of a child in my bedroom. And as a lot of young children do, they don't like to stay in their bedrooms. They like to, sleep in their parents' rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that experience as a small child, and growing up, I had different experiences. And then about a little over a year ago, I met Leslie and some of the other Southern Ghost Girls at one of the events. And I've really, in the past year, just dove into investigation. And I've had so many experiences over the past year.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that it's really funny because when you get into this work, sometimes the investigation comes to you instead of you going to it. As far as, things happen in places that you don't expect, not because you're doing an investigation, or even sometimes places that you don't think are haunted. You're just at some place.
Yes.
And weird stuff happens. And you're like, and then you start thinking, wait a minute. And yeah, you become kind of a little bit of a magnet for that, for strange occurrences or deja vu or going to places and, picking up on things that, because sometimes, when you go to a place that's known to be haunted or it's got a, you kind of expect it. But sometimes you go to a place and it's like, wait a minute. Or, if you actually see somebody, that sometimes, like, some of these apparitions, people don't realize that they're so solid, they're so real looking.
Yes.
They're not real.
You hear that in a lot of historical places or in other places where people will say, hey, that reenactor or that docent, I didn't know you dressed up to give tours. And they'll go, we don't. And they'll go, I just saw somebody walk and they don't wig out because they're thinking they're looking at a real person. So you said you worked with a lot of different groups. And I don't know about your experience, but I know some of these groups, it gets crazy. They have what I call paradrama. So I know eventually some people go, forget this. Let me start my own thing and do the investigations the way I would like to see them, Is that how it happened for you or what happened?
Well, for me, I really have been in the insurance business forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, it was, I literally was sitting in the car at a red light, and I would just, said, you know what, I'm going to start doing something more exciting with my life. Because I was looking for a hobby to do or something, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to start a group, but we were going to all be ladies. That was the thing. A lot of the tours that or investigations I had been to or been part of, it was a lot of men. Now, I'm not bashing.
Yes. No, I know.
So it was the macho egos getting in the way.
Yes.
And they put you to the side there, and oh yeah, she's the little psychic girl. She's our little token psychic, and
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah.
and so but anyway, and it was always that I never felt like I could really speak my mind. And so I said, you know what, this is going to be all ladies, and we are strong women, but everybody, we had to meet criteria. I mean, everybody on my, we don't let just anybody be a part of the group, of course.
Right.
We, you have to be professional women, mature about yourself, take this
Right.
scientific approach. Are all ladies of faith also. So that was important. But we do have, I have to say, we have one man that does help us.
Yeah, it's like help. It's like tech support.
But we love him. His name is Danny, and he's very much a psychic and a paranormal investigator himself too. And he enjoys hanging out with us, I think, sometimes.
Yes.
But we love Benny. But yeah, we I wanted it to be all women, and pretty much we don't have major drama. I don't think we don't want it to ever become that way.
Right.
But I know in other groups there is drama. So if y'all want to talk to that.
Well, I was in other groups. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I was a police officer there for 20
Oh wow.
And then when I retired, I moved down to Fayetteville, Tennessee, which puts me close to Leslie. And how I met Leslie was we were on a TV special together. What is it called? The
Truth or Legends in your
thank you.
hometown.
Truth or Legends in Your Hometown. And I met Leslie through that, and we hit it off, and I was like, I need to be in your group instead of the group I'm in.
Well, you said because there's not as much drama.
Yes.
I mean, there's not as
Well, you know what? When I say drama, I mean,
and it's
sometimes, because I've been doing this since the 1990s myself, and I was always a freelancer. I used to work with a research team that did the state of Florida. They would work with different teams, but I was a freelancer, and I would just, and you could see the groups usually that kind of like faded away is that personal stuff started going on. I was like, wait a minute, this is not about personal stuff. Let's go ghost hunting. How did this get personal stuff? So yeah, that's what I meant as far as paradrama.
Yeah.
That let me tell you something, that does away with a lot of groups, believe it or not.
Well, not to bash anybody, but I've seen it was more professional to be with the Southern Ghost Girls.
Yeah.
I'm here, and I love dressing up. All the dresses we get to wear and different outfits, it's great.
So yeah, we do it a little different than most groups, and that was part of the whole thing too. With me starting this group, I wanted to combine the paranormal investigations and the seriousness of that.
Okay.
But
All
also
right.
taking it the historical significance. We actually wear the historical clothing in all of
Wow.
So we dive into the history.
Absolutely.
And we feel that we're trigger objects for
Sure.
them. And we get a lot of evidence coming, to us, channeling through us. And I feel like it's a very welcoming environment. Wearing the clothing, I mean, we really try to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot more evidence when we dress up.
Yes.
So where do you have certain places that you go to, or how do you guys work it? Or is the tour like, do you do the tour in a certain area and then you have certain places that you visit on the tour, or how does that work?
Well, another thing, we don't do investigations like, abandoned places or anything like that.
Right.
And we only investigate like historical venues.
Okay.
And the really cool part is like usually the ticket sales, a portion of the ticket sales are used to raise money for the historical venues. So
Right.
About different venues. We have ones that we do every single month, like Arlington House in Birmingham. It's a pre-Civil War era home, the only one standing in Birmingham area. We do that monthly.
Okay.
We do some every other month, but we find new places too.
Okay.
we're going to be going to. And then we also do private investigations, just us without the tours. And we got some really cool things lined up.
Right. Okay. So you do both things. You do both things. Like if somebody said, "Hey, I've got something going on at my house," or whatever, you guys go in there. And I like what you said about doing the scientific approach first. In other words, you don't go assume that there's anything going on unless you find proof of it.
Right. You know, and it's
That's
not
what people don't realize how important that is. I tell everybody.
We try to
Nowadays, people hear a noise, and everybody runs outside and sleeps in the car. It's like, wait a minute, slow down. It could be anything. You can have something trapped in your attic or in your crawl space. Something gets loose. But nowadays, people watch too many of the reality shows, and they're like, it's the ghost, quick. But no, let's find out. No. So I'm glad you guys do that approach. You'd be surprised it's not.
right.
Along the lines, sometimes you have to tell people, no, it's that thing. See that right there? That's what's making the noise.
Yeah. A lot of times people will catch pictures or take pictures, and they'll catch, they think it's an orb, but it's dust. Or I've had a lot of people say there's orbs everywhere, spirits, but they're really moths, or or things like that. So we do, we do a lot of debunking too.
Yes.
But we
right.
really real things happen too.
Crazy things
A lot of happen.
Yeah, people don't realize that just because you do ghost hunting doesn't mean you're like gonna jump at the first thing. Oh yeah, it's the ghost. It's like, by the way, when you experience the real thing, that's when you realize, it's like, no, I'm not gonna settle for the no. Things. And so what so far has been one of the most compelling or the most interesting investigations that you've had?
Go ahead,
Kimmy.
Well, there's been so many, but actually we just went to the Thomas house in Tennessee, and we did some table tipping there.
Really?
And we had a blast.
Yes.
We got some really good evidence from our table tipping.
Okay.
So that was I think one of the first times that as a group we had actually had done table tipping. And so when we actually got a response, and such a awesome response from it, we were all just blown away.
Okay. And who was participating in the table tipping? The three of you, or who was doing it?
Yeah, all three of us were there. We had a couple of the other girls as well.
Okay. So you guys had the energy going.
Yeah, the energy was very high that night.
Okay.
We had never done this. I mean, Kimmy and I had actually done it once up in Salem. There was a conference, but as a group, we had never done this. And I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. And when we all put our hands on the table,
And it moved.
and I'm asking it questions, it literally started spinning
Rotating.
around.
Wow.
We have it on our Facebook page, Southern Ghost Girls Tours, and you can watch that. And you can see our expressions.
Yes, we're all like,
what is going on?
Yeah, it's like, it's really happening, right? Isn't that? It's like you're there for that, but then when it happens, you're like, it's really happening. Wait.
in shock. I couldn't believe it started rotating as fast as it does too.
We would ask the spirit to come down and use the energy in the room. It was let us know you're here. It would move every time, and every time it would do that. An orb,
it would come down to the table.
What is who are the entities? Or I don't know what's supposed to be at the Thomas house. What is the story behind that?
The Thomas house, golly, was built in the late 1800s. It was a bath house type thing where people, because of the springs,
the medicinal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has like 5 or 6 different kinds of minerals that even one of the minerals is only found in somewhere in Europe, and then in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee is where it is. So, but there's been a lot of death there. Of course, it was a hotel for travelers back in the day when, it was more like houses that you stayed in instead of, there was no Holiday Inns back then. So, yeah. So, horse and
So
buggy.
people would go to, like, what they say, take the waters, in other words, for curative purposes. But,
Yeah.
But
there was some of them that was just like, you're not going to get cured. Sorry, you're going to die. I mean, let's call it what it is.
there was a little girl named Sarah there, and I want to say she was 6 or 7. Her parents brought her there. She was having a stomach problem. I gave her the water, and 3 or 4 days later, she passed away. So she's there.
Yeah.
So there's that, and there's a little boy drowned in the pool. His name's Edwin.
Okay.
Yeah, and another guy, we're not sure of his name, is everybody calls him Tall, Dark, and Handsome because they've seen apparitions, tall, dark entity. But he
So everybody
was,
hopes he's handsome.
yes.
It turned out to be like, oh, shit. Sorry.
Salesman back in the day. So
Uh-huh.
he the man that owned the Cloyds that owned the hotel back then, Mr. Cloyd thought his wife was having an affair with him. So
There you go.
and he pushed him off of the balcony upstairs to his death.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so
there's
and the town is has a big water thing running through it, spring or whatever, and there was a flood. Oh my goodness, in this, I want to say the 60s, that killed a whole lot of people, and there's people there from that too. I know there's a lady that's there that keeps trying to look for her child because they got away. Just things like that.
Right. That. So there's plenty of,
Yes. It's one of the most haunted places in America.
Wow.
I think CNN said number 2 or something.
Yeah.
But what we like to go into a lot of the places, and we may not know exactly who is supposedly haunting the place. We do some thing, but we try to see who we can find, and sometimes we're very surprised who and what does through. So we had a shocking, we had a very great experience. We went to New Orleans this past year, a couple of us, and we investigated at the Haunted Hotel, which is famous for the Axeman murders.
Wow.
And on that block, I mean, we had, I'm not so sure we had so much of the Axeman come through, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the Lalaurie mansion.
Yes, absolutely. Delphine Lalaurie, yes.
Of the atrocities that happened. Well, that mansion literally is kind of on the same block, but on the opposite end. We were investigating, and her voice came through several times through our equipment, speaking. Was there while that she was the boss. It came through. I mean, things were through. We had all kind of evidence. So sometimes you're surprised and shocked at what you might find that you're not expecting. Because I wasn't expecting her to come through.
Yeah, that was definitely an awesome investigation.
Yeah, let me tell you something though. People don't realize the Lalaurie mansion was already been built 50 years before. It already had a history. And they think that when they sold it, now check this out. What's really interesting about this lady, everybody hears about the thing about the ghost and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When she was 16, she was married off to this guy from Spain that was like in his 40s. She was like a child bride. And by the time she ended up with she became Madame Lalaurie, she was like 46 and her husband was like 20 something. She had this was like her 3rd marriage. I mean, she was like way out there. But her family was very wealthy. That even before that became known because of the fire, because back in those houses, the kitchens would be separate buildings from the actual house. That's where the fire started. And when they supposedly went in there to try to get the slaves, everybody out, is when they discovered. But even prior to that, there were rumors that she was mistreating the slaves. It
was
and she had to basically, the story was that she would normally take her horses out, like on a ride, where people would go around the park in the afternoon. So she pretended she was going to do that, but nobody realized. And she already had, I think it was Mobile or somewhere, she already had a ship waiting for her to get her out of Dodge quick, because the crowds were ready to like burn her, the house down, and that's how she was able to get to Paris. But yeah, she was a wild one out there. But yeah, that place, and afterwards, there's a lot of things that happened at that location after the La Laurie. A lot of people tried to start a hotel. It was, I think during the 20s, somebody bought it and they tried to make it like where people, the destitute could come and stay. A lot of weird stuff happened. That place is like, wow.
And the whole area just right there around that is a very dark. I'm very much an empath, and it's overwhelming almost, that entire block. I mean, you can go 2 blocks over and it changes, but just that entire block, that whole area, it's a very dark, heavy,
very heavy feeling.
Yeah, people don't realize that a lot of those areas of New Orleans really go back like 200-300 years. You're talking way pre-Civil War, way back to like the late 1700s when they started settling that place. There's a lot of history to the land and then the houses and everything as far as what happened there. Yeah, I went to New Orleans back in the late 1980s. No, and I never had a chance to go back, but I remember I went to, the Latin Quarter, that whole area. It's very picturesque, but I know what you mean as far as certain places you're good, and then you go to other streets and it's like, wow, okay.
It does. It's really strange, but we have done so many different investigations this year. They've all just been phenomenal. I mean, I can't say we've had a bad investigation. We've gotten so much evidence. There's a house in Huntsville, Alabama that we do quite often, and we do our tours, and we get a lot of evidence, and we actually saw an apparition there.
Really? What did you see?
Well, she was in the kitchen. The house was actually part of the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
And there's a secret room in this house where they would take the slaves that were trying to, escape, and they would hide a lot of people in that house. And we have, it's been reported that there was a man apparition had scared several people in the house, and there was a theater group that saw the apparition. Anne Lowry, who was the lady of the house, she was actually gunned down in the doorway by the Union troops. They were actually Union sympathizer. Now, this was in Alabama,
right,
states or whatever, but they were actually Union sympathizers, but she was trying to get them to stop because they were coming in and they killed her right there. So we do believe we have seen her apparition. I turned, and I am not one that's actually seen a lot of apparitions. I mean, I have seen everything else, but just a person.
Right.
That has not happened a lot to me. And I was just putting a piece of equipment on the mantle. I turned into the kitchen, and there she was. I turned back. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, this is weird. I turned back. Debbie was in the other room with a tour group. It was probably about 15 people with you.
Yeah.
She didn't know what I had just seen at all.
No idea.
And I'm kind of thinking, this is crazy. I stepped 2 feet, and then you say,
I said, Leslie, there is something standing right beside you. I could see it. And she was like, what? And I took a picture.
Oh my God.
The light from the
from it going home. So I had just seen it, and then I was like, she didn't know, and I step and she sees it. And then the front door opened up by itself, like she was walking out. So that may have been Anne Lowry.
Yeah.
So that happened a couple of months ago. So
was there any anniversary, anything that that date might have been important for any reason that you know of?
We didn't think about it. We haven't.
Okay.
It's just everything. Every one of our investigations and tours,
You never know.
You never know. You never know
Right.
what you find. And I
That's
think
the thing about when you do these tours sometimes. And then you'll have two people take pictures. One captures nothing, but the other person does capture something.
Yes.
yes.
It's really interesting when that happens.
But the tours, honestly, for people that come, a lot of the people are skeptics, you know, and a lot of people
Hmm.
got dragged there by their wife or whoever.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
And then you have people, you know, just from all faiths and all kind of stuff, but they go away and it is such a good feeling.
Mhm.
It's so, you know, they go away thanking us and they're like, this was a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
This doing this tour has opened my eyes to a lot of things. So if y'all want to talk about
Right.
it, it's just incredible to see people take that away.
Well, you
How
know,
long do you guys do the tour? I mean, is it like overnight? Is it a few hours, or how does that work?
About probably anywhere between 2 to 5 hours. I mean, they just kind of range. It may be like
Okay.
1 a.m. or
Right.
7 or 7 to 11. You know, different places have different restrictions sometimes.
Yes.
So they get to experience a lot, and we let everyone use the real paranormal investigation equipment. Everybody gets to share that. We do experiments.
yeah,
Very interactive.
it's their hunt. We tell them it's their ghost hunt. They're the ones that need to, you know, talk. We help them, but we want them to do the ghost.
Have you ever had anybody get more than what they expected that it scared them? Like they're like, I'm ready to go now. But you're like, but the tour's not over. But I'm ready to go now. Have you ever had one of those?
Tell them, Kimmy. Tell her about the girl falling at Arlington. That happened about a month ago too. Things are really, really picking up. I think the veil is thin right now.
Maybe. It's
Things are really picking up.
So yeah, we had a woman that had came to the Arlington house in Birmingham, and we were investigating, and I guess there was probably about 10 people in that room at the time, and we're doing a spirit box session, and all of a sudden there was a lady that she said she just got pushed straight down to the floor, and we watched her just fall straight down to the floor, and it was wild. And she was like, I don't know what just happened, but something pushed me to the floor. And
wow.
so that was very intense for sure.
We had a story circulating. This was a few years back about one of the groups. I said that worked there in the rest of, and they brought in. They had a new person in the group, in the paranormal group, and they went to one of these older museums. I think it was Central Florida, and it was it was empty. One of these 2-story. And she was a younger girl. I think she was early 20s or late, something like that. Bottom line, she's, they said everybody stayed within line of sight of another member of the group. Nobody was ever really truly alone.
Mm-hmm.
She says she was like standing here. She says it was a bunch of, it's a museum, you get a lot. And they're there doing their gauges and all their equipment. And she's all of a sudden, somebody tapped her hard on the back of the shoulder. She knew, she says she turned because she could see that there was another member like down in that doorway, but there was nothing around her. And then and then it did it again. Well, they had to take her out kicking and screaming. Like that was the end of paranormal investigations for her. Because sometimes people don't realize things like that. It's more, you're there for that reason, but then when it happens, it's like, wow.
But we're the kind that we'll ask it if it'll do it again. Can you do that again, please?
Yeah, which is great. But a lot of people, believe it or not, even when they do the tours and everything, or they're hoping when it actually something like that happens, they wig out. They're like, oh my God, it tapped me or something, or they see something. They're like, oh, okay. Gives you like a reality check.
Yeah. Well, I've had my hair pulled, and I barely have hair, so yeah, they yanked my head back one time.
Isn't that, say stuff like that, and you're like, okay.
Bother me. I mean, I told it could use my body if it needed to, so I got my hair yanked.
Yeah, gotta be careful with that though.
Well,
Because
I'm sorry. What's the
no.
when we go into the different venues, I mean, there's certain ones we do, like I said, every month or every other month or so. There are certain spirits that like certain people and that can
Right.
understand certain ones. I mean, there's ones that hate me. I mean, like there's this man at this Oksana mansion that in Oxford, Alabama, that we do sometimes. It is bad. He turns the men who are in the group violent. I mean, it's just weird. He doesn't like me, I feel like, because he feels that I'm calling him out. But then Arlington, Judge Mudd loves me. Like he's one. I'm like one that he will communicate through with our instruments and stuff. So that's a thing too. They have favorites. It's really weird.
Yes, it's almost like their personality likes and dislikes are still there.
Yes.
And sometimes you might remind them of either the right person or the wrong person.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, you remind me of so-and-so, because so guess what? Yeah. And it's hard to think that sometimes like what their personalities are still there.
Yeah.
As far as who they communicate with and who they like. I mean, I've heard of some people, like you said, I've heard of some entities dislike women intensely. The other way around, I've heard others dislike men intensely. And if you go there, you get men mostly in the group, you really won't get anything. And it'll be a very disagreeable that you get a majority of women to go in there in the group and you get a bunch of proof. And
yeah, and then one thing, we get a lot of child spirits.
Okay.
And I feel like, you know, we kind of, maybe it's that motherly, if we're, you know, instinct or something. But I don't know. We have so many children come through the duck, and they're coming. I mean, their voices come through on our equipment, and we get EVPs and all kind of things. But I feel like in the historical clothing that we're wearing, we just approach them in a really soft approach. We don't yell like some other groups might do and provoke.
I think that's stupid. Yeah.
And we get a lot of children. Yeah. I mean,
well, you know what? A lot of people, well, I'm sure people realize, but sometimes they don't remember that back, especially if we're talking maybe 100 years, child mortality was high. You know, children could die easily from a lot of different diseases. And back then also, people, even when they were sick, you know, people died at home.
Yeah.
You know, well, the sick room was at home. It's not like now that everything is in the hospital. Back then, when people were ill, family members, this is where it happened, was at home. So yeah, that's sometimes. So for a child, this is, even where they died, this was their home. This is where they feel their comfort zone, in other words. So, and I tell everybody, sometimes you go to some of these, especially these historical places, and you know the main family, but I say sometimes the servants themselves, people that are never written into the history books or the history of the place, they had their own things going on, as far as things that happened to them personally, children, that sometimes they're part of the cast of characters of hauntings in a place.
Right.
Even though there's nothing written in about it. Have you guys been down to the Myrtles?
I have.
I haven't.
Bucket
list.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite places too.
Yeah. I went to the Myrtles a while back, like 2005. I went to the Myrtles.
So we've been there a couple of times, and with me and my mom.
Okay.
We have done the investigation tours there, and see, like I had done that for so many years. That's why I decided to start our own tour group. And we took tours there, but we caught Chloe, who is she was the servant there.
Right, the one with the turban.
Yes, we did. My mother took a perfect picture that
really
standing in the window of the dining area is perfect. And we got that, and that was probably 15 years ago. So I've been doing this a while. We love it. It's kind of addictive, you know?
Yes. Sometimes, besides the history that you learn about the history, it's very, very interesting. What you come, but in the case of when you do the tours, I'm sure you meet a lot of great people. You know, as far as I'm sure they tell you their own stories about things that's happened to them, and why maybe they're doing the tour themselves. Have you ever had a total skeptic actually become a believer after one of the investigations?
Yeah,
I'm sure there's got to be some that go in there like,
Kimmy had one the other day, and you've had one too.
Well, just doing the human pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
We do the human.
Yeah, we get a lot from human pendulum, and then I did Estes method with the spirit box, and I had a lady. There was something that had came through. She actually said something touched her while communicating with her through the spirit box, and after the investigation, she had came up to me and she was in tears. And
okay.
she said, what was that like? And I said, well, do you believe in a higher power? And she said, no, I'm an atheist.
Oh,
And
what?
I said, oh, well, I said, she's like, but there was something, like something was communicating with me. There was something in the room. And she's like, what was that? And I was like, well, that's kind of for you to decide what that is for you. And, but, I told her my religious beliefs and that, I call upon Jesus and that's my higher power. And, that might be something that she needed to look into. So it was my way of sharing my beliefs. And she definitely believed in something after that day.
Right. Exactly. And when people don't go in there, it's exactly like, okay, if she probably went in there doing it like, like a lark. Nothing's going to happen. When something actually does happen, it's like, how do you square it?
Right.
You go that way. Okay. Nobody was standing next to me. I wasn't standing next to a furniture or what, things like that. People have a hard time then wrapping their heads around it.
Yes.
Because the only thing that it leads to is that, okay, there is something beyond just well, let's say what atheists believe, which is, this is it. This is as good as it gets. Once you're pushing up daisies, it's over. Which I tell everybody, I bet you there's a bunch of ghosts that were atheists before that were like, hey, what happened?
Exactly.
I thought it was over. It's not. Let me ask you something, Debbie. You said you were a police officer. Did you ever see weird stuff when you were a police officer?
All the time. I had all kinds of weird.
I bet.
Yes. I don't even know.
People don't realize first responders, they get their share of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But and I know because I have a lot of, my husband's an ex-officer and retired, and that sometimes people is like, you talk about it, but it's like, keep it low, man. You don't want to be the crazy person around here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, you see a lot of weird stuff when you're a first responder.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, when you guys put out the investigations, is it, you said, how often do you do it? Once a month or as a demand, or how does that work?
Well, I literally could do it it seems like we do them on the weekends, and we started out, I started the tours and stuff 3.5 years ago. So we started out with about one every couple of months, and now I can't do enough.
Right.
The demand is to do a Friday and Saturday every single weekend, and I'm and also run a state farm agency, and
right,
I'm trying to get it all fit in. And then we also have to leave time to do our private tours too, and have some
right.
So it has, I think, with this generation that's coming up, they love this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And the demand is it's growing every single year, every year. I even saw that Disney Channel now has a kids paranormal show.
I know everybody, and as far as the reason why I ask you is that even people, when they're planning to travel, they want to include these tours, on their itinerary.
Mm-hmm.
So like, when we get there, we could let me tell you something. I've done it myself. When I go traveling, I book tours, whether, usually the ghost, and I'm thinking, hopefully the ghost tour person is also really good on history. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what it makes it, whether it's a walking tour or, you ride around, even though the walking tours are the best ones. Everybody now wants to do that because that's great. It's fun.
And that's why I really, I said, I'm going to start this. Nobody else was doing it in Alabama. And, I love history. I love it. And like I said, anytime I go travel, St. Augustine or New Orleans or
right,
wherever I am, I always would take a ghost tour.
Right.
But and then we add with our tours, they get to use a plethora of real
Right.
investigation equipment. So we just, we really just want to make it fun and interesting for people, and it's working. I mean, people love it. I appreciate all of our fans and followers. I think we have almost 21,000 now. So
You know what it is? You could go to some of these historical houses. I'm going to give as an example that during the daytime and take a tour. And
yeah,
it's like, oh, it's okay. It's, But if you really want it, you got to go at night and do a paranormal investigation. Then is when it really becomes interesting. That's what people like,
it's
myself included.
And people love to be scared too.
Sure, of course, of course.
And they're learning history on our tours, because we do a complete history presentation,
Right.
And then we do the investigation, but they're just scared the whole time. They love it. So
Yeah, of course. And what's the worst? It's something happens. They've got a bunch of people around them. It's like the ghost is not going to get me all by myself. Because there's always those brave people that things like that. And I imagine maybe some of these places, they could only get access if they went through you. In other words, to do that. That's what I'm saying. That's another thing. But yeah, let me tell you something. I personally, I love going on ghost tours and just sometimes also a lot of the things that you learn about even the family that lived there, or the history of the house, or the history of the area, and you find out so much. Do you guys ever do any areas like a battlefields or Gettysburg or anything like that? Have you guys ever done anything like that?
I've personally done a battlefield. There's one in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and we did it during the daytime while they were doing a reenactment. And
Okay.
So much evidence, just crazy evidence. So,
right. Yes, I've heard that really stirs things up.
Yeah. But we haven't done one yet. I don't.
Well, there's actually a battlefield here close to where I live in Alabama, and Crooked Creek is what it's called. There was a battle of Hog Mountain, and so we've done that battlefield, and that investigation there. That place is extremely haunted. We have gotten pictures of outlines of apparitions, just great.
Wow.
Great. But we're actually headed to Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Okay.
And that is a really important town for the Civil War. And there's the historic National Cemetery there.
Mm-hmm.
And go check it out. Of course, we will only be able to do it during the day. But they've got, the Union and Confederate, thousands and thousands of the graves are there. And that was the actual battlefield too. So I want to definitely check that out. So we're excited to do that.
Wow. So you guys, if anybody wants to find anything out about the tours that you guys have got up, or for an investigation, what's the best bet? To go to your website or go to Facebook?
You can go to either one. The Facebook is the Southern Ghost Tours and Paranormal Investigations. And then, of course, the website is www.southernghostgirls.com. And we have our events and everything that's upcoming. Please like and follow our Facebook page. And we just appreciate all of our followers and fans. And,
sure.
It's awesome to meet people. We just love it.
Yeah.
Okay. But you also, like you said, you also do, if somebody wants an investigation, you do that also as well. As far as it doesn't.
And with COVID, it's we've kind of stopped doing like individual houses so much.
I was gonna say, you guys sound so busy. It's like
so busy we are, but I mean, we've done some things like that, but then it's just gotten, the last couple of years have gotten a little strange, with everything.
Yes, it has.
Have to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much for being part of the show. You guys have been wonderful. I find this so interesting. Let me tell you something. This was, like I said, usually I would plan my vacations. It's like, okay, what haunted spots do I want to go? And then my itineraries were based on going to bed and breakfast in the areas and the tours. And this is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one out there that this is so, yeah, it sounds fascinating, especially when some of these places that, because there's some places that you see a lot on the shows and they get rehashed, but then there's others nobody's ever heard about.
Right.
And those are the interesting ones. The ones that you're like, wow, that place that actually exists. And then it's like the history on it is wonderful and interesting. And, it sweeps you away and you're like, wow, this is fantastic.
Right. And you'll have to check us out.
Yes.
Because we
Absolutely.
Georgia, Alabama, some in Tennessee. We are going to Mississippi, and I might just head to Florida soon too.
Okay, you let me know. I'm going to keep tabs on you guys. I'm going to keep tabs on you guys.
Trying to get something set up in Florida. So I lived in Clearwater for about 5 years, and
Okay.
loved it. Oh gosh! And I was in Miami this past summer, and it was.
No, let me tell you something though. When we moved, I was like, no more hurricanes. I'm moving to northern Florida in the middle of the state between the coasts. Okay, hopefully if there's a hurricane and it reaches me, it'll be done.
Right.
I've had enough of hurricanes for a while. Let me not jinx it. Then the next thing you know, this thing comes roaring through Florida for some reason. But no.
I think we'll be headed. We might be headed to the Miami area, honestly.
Okay.
So
Okay. You let me know. I know a lot of haunted places in Miami. Believe me. I know some real good haunted places in Miami. Again, thank you, all three. You have been absolutely wonderful. And I want to wish you the best of luck on all your projects. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. Isn't it great? I got to drink some water, guys. I had a little bit of a cough. Like, I can't believe I have to cough. Why do I need to cough? Why do I need to cough now during the middle of a show? Because of course it's the middle of the show. Why not? Isn't it great? I love talking to entrepreneurs. Yes, to entrepreneurs. And that's what she did. Leslie put her thinking cap on. And that's great because I'm not kidding. Traveling for me was like, and I am one of these people, like I'm going to go from there and then we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and the tours to me were really important because I've been on tours that were like, ugh, man, what a waste of money and time. So for me, especially going into any of these places, or if you're a legend tripper, maybe the only way you can access that property, that historical, property is through doing a tour, which I think is fantastic. Isn't that great? I love where they take you on tours to places that are off the beaten path. And from what I see, they move around. It's not like they have this one set, this one or two properties that they do the tours from, and you'd be surprised. For a lot of people say, well, you know what, you get a lot of, sometimes you have a group of people go through, nothing happens. Or it's very minimal or very low level. And then you could go there the next following weekend or the following month and you get everybody there. It could be tied to an anniversary. It could be tied to the weather. It could be tied to, believe it or not, as weird as it sounds, if you have a lot of teenagers in the group, okay, that kinetic energy that sometimes it's basically some entities will use. It's like how they charge their batteries, that they're able to manifest easier or more in your face, the EVP, instead of being something that you can understand, all of a sudden the EVP, it comes in loud and clear because they're able to, they have the energy, or in some cases to actually manifest. Again, what she said was, she's absolutely right. Them dressing up in the period costumes absolutely serves as a trigger object. And also the fact whether it's them or somebody in the group, why, you know, why some groups, some occasions you get something in a, you know, if it's an intelligent haunting, these entities, they do respond. You know, people think of trigger objects as in things from their time period, you know, whether it's the object or their costume. The biggest trigger object are people's likeness. If there's somebody there that reminds them of somebody they knew, it could be a bad connection, by the way. It doesn't always have to be a love connection. It could be, man, I really hated that person. People don't realize that triggers for an investigation, for some weird reason, the most powerful ones I've ever seen is tied into how certain people look to that entity if it's an intelligent haunting. Something about them. I want to say, people will say, well, mannerisms. How's this? Let's say the entity is a soldier or military person. And yeah, you could bring some guy who was maybe ex-military. That might, you bring in somebody. And let's go down the road and say this guy was, lived during the time of the Civil War or around that time. Okay, you get somebody in that group, a man, who wears his hair and his beard. Remember, around the time of the Civil War, post-Civil War, was the time of the beards, the mutton chops, you know, the big mustaches. Okay, you get somebody walk in there. It's not a military guy, but he has that look that reminds them of what maybe somebody that they knew looked like. And you'll get a response to this person, even though this person has no tie-in to what they did in life. Okay, because of the way they look. Same thing with women. All right, same thing with women. Something about you, sometimes the way you even speak. I've heard of a lot of children entity, which I'm always very careful about, by the way, but that's a whole nother show. Will respond to women who, how can I say, have a motherly thing about them. All right. Whether it's the way they are, even if they don't have children with them at the time, just the way they talk. I don't know. There's something that you carry around with you when you're a mom, that even when your kids are not there, you come off as a mom that attracts these children, not so much because you remind them of their mother, but if for any reason these children lacked maternal attention, caring, they were very hungry for this. You know, you see this a lot in some of the these orphanages, or even some places where, let's face it, you know, even in the best of families, sometimes children were left to the care of servants. And a servant is a servant, and it's not your mother. Okay? There's nothing like mom. And children always hunger for that. So I've heard of that also, that the mom thing will bring in same thing. You could get the opposite. You know, there's something about you that just like rubs whoever's there the wrong way. Something about you reminds them of the wrong person, you know. And then you'll see people, the ones that get pinched, scratched, hair pulled, pushed, you name it. Anything that they can manifest to like basically drive you out, short of saying those famous "get out," you know, that you're hearing about the horror movies, they'll do it. All right. It's very weird. It's very weird. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. And believe it or not, I think nowadays with so many crazy things going on, it's time. It's great to go to one of these tours and like suspend your disbelief, man. Go and have a good time. Go and have a good time with your friends, with your family. Go do some ghost hunting. Hopefully, maybe you catch something, maybe you don't. But man, you spend a few hours and you forget some of the crazy stuff that's going on in the world. And yeah, then you start planning, you know, what the next thing you're going to do. Believe me, I've been to plenty of those things. Again, guys, I want to thank you for being part of my audience. Come back every week. I've got some great guests coming on. I've had some people asking me. Yes, I am going to be doing the cemetery runs. Also, some people have been saying that they want me to maybe do some type of like paranormal news once a week, maybe with the shows. Maybe I might do that. Maybe read up on any of the weird headlines out there, like something like a condensed. You remember the National Enquirer? How it was always really funny that all their front page news was like weird stuff. When Men in Black, the real stories were the front page of the National Enquirer. This flying saucer, the thing. Maybe I'll do my own version of that. Let's see. You'll see it if that ever comes into being. Don't forget, visit MiamiGhostChronicles.com, MarlenePardo.com. You get links to the videos, links. Also, if you want to listen to any of the podcast versions without commercial interruption, get the links there. You can download it directly from my site, or if not, you get a link to the best video, podcast platform that you prefer. Also, remember, besides YouTube, I am on a bunch of other video platforms. I am on BitChute, on Steemit, on Rumble. You can even find me on Roku. If you go to Roku and look for the Rumble channel, you can find me that way if you want to see me on TV. I'm all over the place. Anyway, you have links there when you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Again, guys, take care. It has been absolutely wonderful to have you guys back with me every week. Till next time.